Hello everyone. I wanted to take a few minutes to share an update since it's been very quiet here, as you probably noticed. I had to navigate a sudden and unexpected house move, which I found out about in early August, and I'm now on the other side of that. I've been feeling pretty uprooted, but I'm now settling nicely into my new place, and I'm eager to get back to sharing more conversations with you all and some other things as well that I'll get to in a minute. So I've not one but two exciting announcements. Both are to do with books, which is what the episode also talks about. So first up, a book called Sex Meets Life, and I'll read you the blurb. What happens to your sex life when life inevitably happens? If you've ever found your sex life going through a time of unexpected shifts, transformation, or pause, you are not alone. In this daring anthology, you'll find candid stories about the impact of aging, illness, relationship changes, exploring gender, menopause, becoming a caregiver, sexual awakenings, and more. From reclaiming desire to redefining intimacy, each story offers a raw, honest look at the challenges and the celebrations that can emerge when our sex lives come face to face with life. I've contributed a chapter to this book. It's my third contribution to a co-authored book, and it's out tomorrow on Friday, November the 8th. It was collected and edited by my dear friend Anna Sansom, who was our 66th podcast guest way back in October 2021. You can find her episode on 50shadesofgender.com/Anna if you want to have a listen to that. So this book has been a real labour of love for her. She's been working on bringing it together for over a year now, and it's wholesome and raw and queer, and I'm really excited for it to be out in the world. So as well as contributing a chapter, I've also done the layout design and typesetting of the book, so I'm really excited about it. Definitely some adult content in there, just FYI. So you can get the ebook version or a paperback copy, and it's available at a discounted price right now. There is a website called sexmeetslife.com where you can find all the details, or you can go straight to Amazon in whatever country you're in, hopefully, and find it there. So please share this with anyone you think would find this book insightful. Secondly, I'm creating an anthology of my own. I've been thinking about getting into publishing, and as I talked to a friend about this last week, they said something along the lines of, oh, you don't just want to write or design books, you want to make books happen. And I really love that, the making books happen. So this may become the tagline of my future non-conforming publishing house. If it's not been used already, that is, I'll have to look into that. And I want for this new venture to be a social enterprise. I want to platform marginalised authors' voices and subjects. I want it to be accessible. I want it to offer resources. I want it to be a community. I don't know the details yet, so let's see how it comes together. But I'm excited about it anyway. So back to the anthology. The first project of my new venture will be an anthology of hope for a brighter future, and I am hereby calling out to authors and writers, professional or budding, no matter your level of skill, experience, or training, I want to hear from you. So for this book, I'm collecting gender journey stories. Stories about how coming out and living authentically change your life for the better despite the challenges. And even if you're not able to be out fully, but only in certain places or with certain people, I would still love to hear from you. And I don't mean pretend there are no challenges or to downplay them. But for this project, I really want to focus on wholesome, uplifting, empowering stories, because people need to hear this, especially now. And a few days ago, when I got the nudge to release this episode this week, I had no idea how apt the timing would be. So let's celebrate this amazing community and the unique individuals in it, and show how much more we all have in common than we are different. So you can find all the details on the website at 50shadesofgender.com/hope. If you feel called to contribute, I would love to receive your story or a snippet. You can find out more about what you can send in on the website. And if you can think of anyone who has a story to share, please pass this on to them as well. So, thanks for your patience. Let's get on with it.
It was definitely like exploration of clothing, because I always felt like, even though like I always like to dress well, and it always felt a little bit uncomfortable. So I think it wasn't until my partner was like, oh, you should try this on, and then later on I was like, oh, this is actually women's clothing, but it fits me so much better. And my partner was like, yeah, it almost was like your body knew before you did.
Hello and welcome to the 50 Shades of Gender podcast. we get curious about all things gender, sex, and sexuality, as well as relationships, feminism, the inclusive kind, neurodivergence, disability, kink, mental health, and all that makes us humans unique and diverse. From body positivity to body dysmorphia, it's all welcome here. If you appreciate this podcast and want to support us, visit our website 50shadesofgender.com, as in FIFTY, to make a donation, find out more about our allyship course and workshops, and details of how to join our community. Now, join us on a journey of inclusion, acceptance, and respect. I'm your host, Esther Lemons. I am a queer woman, and my pronouns are she and they. In this episode, I have a conversation with Helena Key, a queer author and founder of an independent publishing company. Helena's pronouns are she and her, and she is a transgender woman, pansexual, and bipolar. Find out what that means to Helena in this episode. We also talk about transitioning while parenting a young child, building trust in relationships, the overlap between bipolar disorder and ADHD, challenges in calling out problematic behaviour and opinions in groups, alternative publishing company structures, writing authentic characters, and how to get a more realistic representation of LGBTQIA+ and other marginalised people in books, TV, and films. Please be aware there is brief mention of suicide in this episode. It was recorded on the 13th of July 2024. Now let's get into the episode. Hello and welcome. What's your name?
Hello, my name's Helena, and I'm very happy to be here.
Thanks, Helena. Thanks for joining me. Yeah. So the labels you gave me were transgender woman, pansexual, and bipolar. And you also mentioned that you're a parent. We're going to talk a bit about parenting, and some other stuff about writing and all sorts of things. So, how long have you been out now, and what was the journey like for you?
Yeah, so I've been openly out for 3 years, but I'll probably say it's probably been more like a 5 year journey. There was a lot of questioning before that, especially with my wife, just talking to them and like exploring my gender a little bit. I was non-binary for a year before that as I was getting more comfortable with gender expression and I found being non-binary really helped me just explore who I was at the time. And then I realized there was like a bit more to who I was at the time, and that label didn't quite sit right with me, and I was a bit more different than obviously every other non-binary person who I met. And luckily I had a really good support network who were able to talk to people and ask questions. And slowly but surely over that course of the year I realized that I was actually a trans woman.
Ah, yeah. I've heard that from several other people actually, because some folks are really like from one binary to another, and some are like obviously non-binary is like an identity in itself, and people exist there. But for some
Yeah,
people, it's been
absolutely.
like a path, a step in the journey, and they move into it and then out of it again, which is really interesting, isn't it? Um,
Yeah.
so do you have a sense of like, or have you always had a sense of like not being quite the gender you're assigned at birth? Or was that, like you said, 5, 6 years ago that you suddenly started, hang on a minute, how was that?
Yeah, I think looking back at it, I think the signs were always there, even if I didn't notice them.
Yeah.
I was always quite more effeminate than what I think was expected of me. My dad was quite a macho man
Mm,
kind of thing, so trying to live up to his expectations of
mm,
masculinity was always going to be difficult. But I think once I realised that the traditional masculinity, like what they show in like action films or what my dad wanted me to be, just wasn't fitting for me at all.
mhm,
I always felt more. I remember going to a Halloween party, and the only jacket I had which matched what I needed to wear was a jacket my mum had. I remember feeling way like it was the most comfortable way I dressed ever in my life,
mm,
and I probably should have picked up it back then. But my partner, who's non-binary, said when they first met me, they kind of had an inkling,
mhm,
but they weren't like sure how to tell someone who was male presenting at the time that, hey, I think you're trans.
mm.
But they just made sure they supported me on my journey as we went through it together.
Oh, that's really lovely. Yeah, that's great. It's so invaluable to have that support, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't think I would have came out if it wasn't for my partner, because
Hmm.
having that safe space with them meant a lot to me.
I'll bet it had. Yeah, yeah. That's really lovely. So, you said you had a child together 6 years ago. So They're 6 years
Yeah,
old now, and you having
yeah,
been out as trans for 3 years. So obviously, your transition has gone along with being a parent and, parenting a young child as you explored and, your gender and lived more authentically as yourself. So, what's that been like? Big question, isn't it?
yeah. It's been really interesting. Because she was such a young age, she didn't really notice it as much to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
It was just we still use dad at home because that's just what she's got used to,
Mm-hmm.
and it doesn't bother me at all. It's just what I am to her.
Yeah.
But like she's really amazing. She never really questions it. The only time she's questioned it is when they're like learning about gender a little bit at school,
Mm.
and obviously I'm not what they're teaching, which is interesting. But like
Yeah.
she's taken it in her stride. My partner got a book called "She's My Dad,"
I've heard of it. Yeah.
which we started, yeah,
Yeah.
which we started reading, and it's a really good book. She asked me to read it almost every night now.
Oh.
I think it's just helping her to connect with me a little bit, and it's kind of shown her that she doesn't have to fall into gender stereotypes either, even at
Mm-hmm.
like 6 years old.
Yeah.
A lot of the people, a lot of other parents are very much, there's boys and there's girls, and they dress and they act certain ways, and then there's my kid who kind of likes to do both. So it's really been nice being able to just like let them explore whoever they want to be,
Yeah.
and but like it is difficult because you also get weird looks from parents. Not all of them. Some of them are like really chill about it, but
Mm.
some of the other parents, especially parents you don't know,
Mm-hmm.
who just like spot you in the playground, it can be difficult.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it must be such a journey for her as well, like your kiddo, to have these conflicting messages, I suppose, from the outside world and from school and education, and then what she's seeing at home. So
Yeah,
yeah.
I think it's a lot for her sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
but she never like complains or shows that she's finding it difficult.
Mm.
I think it's almost forced the school to be a little bit more gentle with their approach because they do know that she has a trans parent, so they can't use stereotypes as much
Mm.
because to Violet but that's not true.
Yeah.
So I think it's kind of helped in that way. Um,
Yeah, yeah. And it sounds like just because you're living authentically as you now, and that is an example for your kiddo, she takes that into her school and has an effect on the whole classroom. It's such a big exponential effect that it has. And like a lot of the time, we think, "Oh, I'm just one person. How do I ever make a difference in anything?" But it just goes to show, really, doesn't it?
yeah, she's quite defiant in that.
Yeah.
She likes to play with the boys a lot
Hmm.
because she likes to be a bit more like physical
Hmm.
and a bit more active. And I think because of how people sometimes raise their kids, like girls do princesses, boys do like football, and
Mm,
whereas my kid just likes to do both.
that's
Like Violet
awesome.
will run around in a princess costume while playing football, or dress up as Thor while pretending to do whatever. And it's just really
Yeah.
amazing to see like her completely just barge through gender stereotypes, especially at like birthday parties and stuff, where she just doesn't care
Hmm.
and it gets into arguments sometimes if they say like you can't play with us, that's a girls' game. She'll just go no, and she'll just do what she wants.
That's brilliant. Oh, that is so brilliant. I love that. And how
Yeah.
how would you say it's affected your parenting as such, your own transition? Has it like made you
Um,
question things about parenting or reframe things or change things?
yeah, I think so because like I think especially with like the way I was raised, I think my parents did a fairly good job raising me. My dad was always like, "I'm your friend," which I've tried to carry over
Hmm.
to Violet. Like, well, your parents, but I'm also like your friend. And I not just that I love you, but I like you as a person. Make sure that she knows
Mm.
that we like her because I think sometimes that's quite overlooked. But like
Yeah,
even at home, we will never like stop her playing with a toy if she goes to a toy shop and there's something, unless it's completely out of her age range or dangerous.
of
Where
course.
it's like get whatever you want.
Yeah.
We don't care if it's a army. Well, we don't really do that, but if it's a dinosaur or the new Barbie or Encanto toy, she can watch whatever
Hmm.
or and play with whatever.
Yeah.
So it's quite nice letting her have that freedom, which I don't think me or my partner really had growing up.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So you feel very aware of like doing things differently yourself in
Yeah,
that
like
way.
as much like I said,
Yeah.
as much as my parents kind of like supported me,
Yeah.
I still think they kind of fell into stereotypes,
Mm.
and I think my partner's parents were the same. So it's quite nice just letting Violet do whatever she wants as long as it's safe, and
Yeah.
just explore whatever she wants to explore.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Just a in between question, like, are you happy mentioning your daughter's name? Are you okay with
Oh
that?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I've spoke to my partner about it. It's fine.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay, that's great. Yeah, yeah. Just
yeah,
I assumed so. Otherwise, you wouldn't. But like, yeah,
yeah,
it's good to
yeah,
check, right? Yeah,
yeah, yeah. Absolutely. Thank you.
yeah. Awesome. Is there anything else that you want to say about parenting, as a trans person? What would you say to other parents or maybe people who are exploring coming out who are also parenting young kids? Do you have any advice for them?
Yeah, I think especially younger kids, they're a lot more accepting and adaptable than I think people give them credit for.
Mhm.
I know when Violet was first born, I was very much male presenting, wearing suits all the time because that's what I had to do for my jobs.
Mhm.
And then I kind of shaved my head completely bald, and so Violet sort of that confused Violet, me losing all my hair, and then going from that to like when my hair was coming back, going like bright pink, and then having like what I have now, which is like really long red hair.
Mhm.
So Violet's kind of seen everything, and she accepts it so quickly.
Mhm.
So I think like any parent who's got kids, they're far more accepting than I
Mhm.
think people realize they're going to be.
Yeah.
The only worry I ever have is as she gets older, how are other children going to treat her, knowing that she's got a parent who's trans.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I do worry about bullying, but I think children will bully. If someone's going to bully someone, they're going to do it for whatever the reason.
That
They'll
is
find
fair.
a reason.
Yeah. Well, not fair,
So
but
so
like
I'm less.
totally.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I was
I'm
bullied
so I'm less worried about what the
relentlessly.
reason is.
Yeah, I think it was
Yeah,
because I
so was
was
I.
neurodivergent. I think it's like, or a
Yeah,
sensitive kid or whatever, like they just do. If they see anything vulnerable, maybe not vulnerable. I don't know what it is, but it's like it happens, isn't it? Like for all sorts of reasons, as you
yeah,
say. Yeah, so yeah, if you're happy to move on to the pansexual label, we can talk about that a
yeah.
bit.
Absolutely.
So,
Yeah,
yeah, have you always known you were just attracted to humans all sorts or
yeah. I kind of started exploring it more. I think just before I met my partner, so about 2010, which is going back a long way now.
Mhm.
I kind of came out as bisexual to some of my friends because I didn't actually know pansexual was a label at the
Yeah.
time. And then once I heard the label and I read what it was, I was like, oh, that's definitely me. I'm more interested in the person than the gender.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
So that really fit with me, especially as someone who's always been a little bit more, I guess, not gender fluid, but I didn't really, as much as I tried to conform because I felt like I had to,
Mhm.
I never really was interested in doing it internally.
Mhm.
So it really helped me realize that, yeah, I feel like I treat everyone like I treat myself, almost like I'm more interested in the person as opposed to the parts, as some people say.
Yeah, yeah, totally. That makes total sense to me because I very much relate to the pansexual label as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. As you were sort of exploring that, do you feel like there was ever maybe well, confusion, that's a thing, isn't it? But like between gender identity and sexual preference, for example, and attraction and stuff, was it all like maybe just all entangled for you? You didn't really know what was what, or like you said, it was a different time that you started exploring sexuality first and then gender like at a later stage, right?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, so sexuality came out first, and then the gender came out
Mm-hmm.
probably quite a while after, probably about 5 years after,
Mm-hmm.
because it's really because I kind of dabbled almost. I'm gonna say dabbled in gender exploration because I remember doing it when I was at a certain job, but then not taking it any further because I was like, oh no, you're probably just feeling a bit silly, and then looking back at it, going like, no, I probably should have seen the signs back then and just like gone for it, but I didn't know like how
Mm-hmm.
support I like me and my partner were married at that time, but like it was that thing of like I don't know
Yeah.
how everyone else is going to take it. I don't know how comfortable this relationship is at the moment. But like looking back, like my partner said, like they knew as soon as they met me.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
I would have been absolutely fine and safe. But you hear a lot of people like breaking up when they come
It's
out as
true.
anything.
Yeah, it's true.
Um,
Yeah.
but like I was with my partner when I came out as bisexual and then realised later it was actually pansexual, but
Mhm.
I just didn't know the different terminologies because no one actually taught me.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. Yeah, that's interesting
But
because,
yeah,
like, you have to feel safe. Like, feeling safe is like it takes time, doesn't it? I find with a person, and it's not just about telling someone you're safe with me. It's That's not all there is to it. That is like not it at all, is it? You have to feel it
no, no.
and be in that.
Yeah, I remember we finally had our own place, and I'd been working for quite a while when I started to like explore my gender, and I don't know that's because I felt like I was more settled in a comfortable home environment. I had somewhere
Hmm.
private, and my relationships at work were comfortable enough that I knew that
Hmm.
if anything happened, at least I'd have some support,
Yeah, yeah,
which was important, as opposed to home life where like if your parents don't like it, you're still kind of trapped living with them.
yeah. That's so true. Yeah. So you need a certain level of ease and freedom to
Yeah,
yeah, to start the journey. Otherwise it's just, well, you don't need it, but like people come out in all sorts of circumstances, I guess, but it helps, I guess it helps a lot.
yeah, it helps a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So would you say when you started exploring your gender, was there something maybe that stood out that made a big difference for you as to finally taking that first step towards expressing it, and in addition or as well as what you've already talked about?
I think I think it's very much like having. I think it's probably weirdly because Violet was born. I knew I had a very comfortable and stable home life.
Mm.
At the time, I was moving jobs as well. So I think I almost thought like it doesn't matter if this now implodes because I'm moving job anyway. So
Mhm.
people can accept me. But I didn't come out properly until I was at a specific job in the NHS, and that was only because the manager I had at the time, she was really, really amazing and just supportive in my personal life as well.
Mhm.
I didn't stay at that, I only stayed at that job for a few months, but she created a very safe environment for me where I felt
Mhm.
like I could come out,
Mhm.
which was very much important to me. I think important to anyone who's exploring that, but
Yeah.
it was definitely like exploration of clothing because I always felt like, even though like I always like to dress well, and I it always felt a little bit uncomfortable.
Mm.
So I think it wasn't until my partner was like, "Oh, you should try this on," and then later on I was like, "Oh, this is actually women's clothing, but it fits me so much better." And my partner was like, "Yeah, it almost was like your body your body knew before you did."
Wow, that is
Um,
such a cool,
yeah,
yeah, statement. I
yeah.
love
My
that.
partner always said like I've got like the curves and everything.
Mm.
So my partner was always like, "Yeah, your body knew before you did.
Wow.
You just had to catch up."
Yeah, yeah. Wow, I love that. That is so cool.
Yeah, which is true because looking back how my clothes used to fit, I was like, yeah, it felt definitely hung like in a very boxy way, and it wasn't until I wore clothes which were a bit more like fitting. I was like, oh yeah, this is way more comfortable.
Yeah, yeah. And it's so like comfort as well. It's so multi-layered, I suppose, because there is like the physical comfort, and there's in how you feel
Yeah,
like emotionally in it, and there's like sensory stuff as well, because like as a neurodivergent person with sensory sensory sensitivities, I can very much relate, like fabrics and stuff like that, because sometimes I see something and I think, oh, that's beautiful, and I touch it and I'm like, no, that's not going to happen ever,
yeah. Oh
you know.
yeah, I do that with anything satin. I do that with.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yes, I find it quite irritating. But
Interesting. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, it definitely definitely the clothing. It was when I'd come out to my partner like talking about exploring. I was like, I feel this way, and then we went to I think Asda or Sainsbury's, and I just picked up one dress which I quite liked the look of. It wasn't even, I think it was like £10 because it was on sale,
Mm,
and that was the thing I wore like just around the house to get used to it. So I was like, oh, I really like this, but I'm not comfortable because I live in a very small village.
mm,
It was like I'm not comfortable wearing this out and about yet.
yeah.
But luckily, I had a really amazing friend in America called Cora, who's a writer. And when I came out in this writing group, because we'd started talking, she was like, "I want to send you something. Do you know like roughly what size you are?" And then I told her, and then I got this like mini dress and this bra she just sent to me,
Oh,
and it was really amazing to be like that supported straight away.
yeah. Oh, that's so lovely. It's just like supportive people make such a difference, don't they?
Yeah, because I
Yeah,
wasn't expecting it at all.
yeah, yeah. Supportive people and acts of kindness. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah. So you also mentioned about being bipolar. Have you like been diagnosed for that like long time ago? Like how has that been?
So that's a very weird situation where
Okay.
I've been in a few times with the GP
Mm-hmm.
and the mental health nurse, and they've both said to me, "You hit all the criteria for bipolar."
Mm.
But when I pushed them to make a referral, they've been kind of reluctant.
Okay.
It wasn't until recently where I had a bit more depressive episodes. I think a couple of years ago now, I
Mm-hmm.
did end up trying to take my own life because
Oh
everything
gosh.
just kind of got on top of me.
Yeah.
That I think it forced them to take me a bit more seriously.
Mm.
So I do. So I've got all these notes saying, "Oh, they hit the criteria, but no referrals been made."
Mm.
But now they've put that referral through, so I'm just waiting for that formal
Oh
diagnosis.
gosh.
But they are treating me as if I have it,
Yeah.
although I'm not medicated yet because I can't be medicated without the diagnosis.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah.
but I think they are also looking at possible ADHD because there are overlapping symptoms.
Yeah.
But my dad had bipolar, so I think that's why they're thinking I'm more likely to have bipolar
Yeah.
because of the genetic aspect of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think some of his family have bipolar, even if they're not diagnosed, they've got the exact same behavioural traits as my dad.
Mm. Yeah.
My dad had. So it's very much that thing where it's like semi-diagnosed. Like
Yeah.
some of the practitioners have gone, "Oh, we think you have it," and then I'm having to really push them to actually look into it. And I don't know if it's because of obviously it costs money to make referrals and things like that.
Yeah. It's so tricky, isn't it? Like since COVID, obviously, there've been, everything's just taking so much longer and the NHS is so overburdened and stuff. Like the gender transition
Yeah,
stuff, neurodivergent, like autism, ADHD diagnoses, it's all taking a lot longer than it used to.
yeah, but they put the referral through, which I'm quite happy with.
That's
It took them
good.
a long
That's
time
good.
because I assumed they had when they told me that, "Oh, well, you've hit this criteria." I was like, "Oh, so they've done it now," and it wasn't until I actually had to call up and ask. They're like, "Oh no, no referrals been made," so I had to book in
Oh,
an appointment with them.
yeah, 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 yeah. Gosh. Yeah, it's interesting because I've heard people say like people just keep treating me like I've got depression or bipolar when I've actually got ADHD, and they know they've got ADHD. So yeah, it's an interesting one. Like,
Yeah, there's
yeah,
overlap, which I think is why they want to make sure that
mm,
I get the right diagnosis for the right
yeah,
medication.
of course,
Because if you get given bipolar medication, you've got ADHD, it can really mess with your body.
yeah,
So I think they want to make sure that there's no health risks.
yeah, yeah.
The
That
same
makes
way
sense.
that certain, yeah, I was on sertraline for depression, but if you have bipolar, that can actually really mess with your body as well. And
Oh
I was
gosh,
getting quite severe side effects from that, so they had to stop that. And I think
yikes.
that also made him go, "Okay, you're hitting more than just the standard criteria for it now."
Yeah, 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 totally. Gosh, yeah,
So that was quite interesting.
yeah, I'd say. So you just mentioned a writing group. So you're a writer and you have your own
I am,
independent
yeah,
publishing company now as well. So
I do, yeah.
yeah, when it comes to like writing and being trans, I don't know, is there anything that you've found that's like because we all know about how trans people are portrayed in like films and books and all that stuff is very stereotypical. So they're either the bad guys
Yeah,
or the bad people, or they're what was the other word? They're either the baddies or they're tragic. It's like,
yeah,
yeah, yeah. Well, over to you. What do you have to say on the subject?
yeah. I do think there needs to be more like trans writers writing trans characters, or at least
Yeah.
being sensitivity readers when it comes to
Oh,
trans
that's a
characters.
good point. Can you say a bit more about being or like sensitivity readers and what it is and why people need it?
Yeah, I did this. I did a talk about this
Amazing.
at the book fair.
Yeah.
But yeah, sensitivity readers is someone who's from a certain demographic, who you can either, if you know them, they'll do it for free, but you can hire them professionally,
Mm,
and they just look over the characters to make sure there's nothing like offensive or stereotypical within them. Obviously, it's very important if you're doing any kind of like if it's like anyone from LGBT or any if you're writing about people of color, making sure you are getting it authentically. I sometimes question if I'm writing a character, am I the right person to write this character?
mm,
Um,
yeah.
should it be me writing it? But
Yeah.
obviously, sometimes you have a character in there who is from a demographic, so it's very important to get that sensitivity reader, even if it's a small part, to make sure it is authentic and not offensive. Because I think sometimes people do it with the best intentions,
Mm,
but it can still fall into stereotypes.
yeah.
And sensitivity reader just stops you from falling into that hole.
Mm, love that. That's great. It's so important. And I think something that definitely needs to be included in the whole package of publishing, for sure.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, I know it's quite a toxic show, but I know when it came to writing Jules on Euphoria, the showrunner had the intelligence to actually consult with Hunter Schafer, the trans actor playing the character.
Mm.
So there was a lot of input, and you can tell watching the show that they collaboratively worked on that character.
Mm. Mm.
Even if the rest of the show is quite toxic, in my opinion, at least that portrayal was
Interesting.
authentic to the experiences that that actor had gone through.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not familiar with that actually, so I might give it a watch. What else shall we talk about? Is there anything that we haven't talked about yet that you would like to say?
I'm not really sure. I always find this, even any interview, I always find this hard.
Yeah.
I will say, like, in terms of like as a writer,
Yeah.
I was fortunate to have already be in a queer writing group,
Yeah.
so I already had that safe space to that I was already openly queer in.
Hmm.
So coming out as trans in that group was quite easy.
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah.
Um, yeah,
Yeah.
any other group, I've been in another writing group where I've had to call out someone before for certain views they've had,
Mm.
but I got quite overwhelming support from the other people in the group who weren't aware. So that was really nice. And someone just went, "Oh yeah, we weren't aware of that. I'm so sorry. We'll handle this for you."
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Which was, it
Oh,
wasn't
that's
like a
great.
big thing, but it was just questioning something, and I was like, okay, that's kind of coming across very offensive. I don't think you're either not aware or you don't care, and I need to work out which one it is
Mm.
before I go in guns blazing.
Yeah, that's such a thing, isn't it? Because it can be so uncomfortable to have to call that out.
Yeah, I don't like. I've gotten more confident doing it,
Yeah.
especially. But like, it can be that thing of like, oh, I don't want to be accused of accusing someone of something they're not doing.
Yeah.
But like, if it's very much overwhelmingly, I'm like, okay, I just need to make you aware
Mm.
that this is what's happening, or this person you're speaking about in such a positive way, they're actually really damaging to this community, and I'm not sure if you're aware or not.
Mm.
So we need to just touch on that first.
Mm. Yeah, there's some great examples actually. Yeah, that's really helpful.
Yeah, I've had someone who was just like, they were generally asking a question. It was really nice because they were just coming from, they were, oh my god, I was so ignorant on this topic, and we had a conversation. It's like, oh yeah, you can talk to me anytime, any questions, just
Hmm.
let me know, because I know any mistakes you're making, you're not. It's not malicious.
Yeah.
It's just where you don't know,
Yeah.
and the best thing, and you're doing amazing right now by asking, and that's all it takes. Just ask. No one's going to get offended if you ask.
Yeah, yeah. See, that's such a thing as well. And it's like so much about consent as well, because I think a lot of people maybe get a bit ahead of themselves in a, not in a malicious way at all, but like they might meet a trans person and then they're like, oh, now you can educate me on all things trans. And it's like, well, if they choose to, then okay. But also
Yeah,
that is not their job, you know?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I approached them, and because when I brought something up to them, they're like, "Oh, I didn't know that." I was like, "Oh, have you got anything else?" And then we spoke for a little bit,
Yeah.
and we haven't really spoken since. But it was nice that someone was
Yeah.
happy to do that.
Yeah.
But like you said, we're not there to be that. We're not there to be their field guide either.
Exactly.
It's
Yeah.
also up to them to educate. There's enough resources out there that it's now at that stage where I think
Hmm.
it's on the onus of the person to have that at least minimal education of what they need to do.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I can almost like relate it to like cis men, for example, going up to women saying, "So tell me about misogyny." It's like, well,
Oh yeah.
okay. you know.
Yeah, it's always that thing of like, are you actually asking? Like, are you being honest in your communication with me, or are you trying to like get me in a gotcha moment?
Mm,
When people are like, "Oh, give me an example of it," I'm like, I'm trying to work out if you are generally interested or if you're just trying to pick an argument,
mm.
like start a fight kind of thing.
Yeah, that's such a
I've been,
tricky thing to navigate as well, isn't it?
yeah,
Yeah.
because I've seen it before. Like, I've been involved in conversations when you start to listen to me, like, oh, you never actually cared about my answer. You were just trying to say what you wanted to say
Yeah.
and somehow twist my words. I'm not engaging. It's obviously online. You can just end the conversation. It's
Mm.
so
Yeah.
easy. Obviously, in person, it can be a little bit harder.
Yeah.
Even if you walk away, they might follow you, or but
Gosh.
you can still hopefully remove yourself from a conversation if you know it's not an honest one.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Absolutely. What do you feel about when it comes to what the industry you're in, like publishing, which is something that I'm looking into myself for this anthology that I'm starting to gather
Yeah.
stories for? It's yeah, gosh, what is it about publishing and like gender or being trans or I don't know what sort of do you want to see in it? What do you feel is maybe problematic right now in publishing that needs to change? Anything else on the subject?
Yeah, I do think when it comes to publishing, I think because unfortunately it is a business,
Yeah.
so they're trying to make the big companies try and make as much money as they can. So they will publish what is more, I guess, palatable to an audience,
Mm.
whether that's a genuine experience or not. It's a lot easier to have stereotypes which people might deem more as accepting than it is to actually look at the nuances and complexity of gender and sexuality and
Hmm.
things that like like race as well.
Yeah.
So I would like to see more publishers. I do know there's I think small press is a lot better for
Yeah.
it because they're already trying to be a bit more niche,
Yeah.
but especially from the mainstream, which there are some fantastic writers out there, but I still think sometimes if you're only going to go for ones which are deemed as commercially successful, you're never going to hear the more authentic voices,
Yeah. Yeah.
which is like I think like shows like Heartstopper, which is based on a book, is amazing.
Hmm.
Um, but I think if that's the only media consumption or literary consumption people are going to get,
Yeah.
it's going to just
It's not enough, is
reinforce
it? Yeah.
stereotypes that already exist
Yeah.
and make it even harder going forward.
Yeah, that's the thing. And as you say, I think smaller presses are a lot better at that, generally, not all of them, obviously, but like, and it can make such a difference. And even like there's other resources out there, like podcasts and stuff like that, to just really spread more authenticity, I suppose. Yeah.
Yeah, I think authenticity is the most important thing in writing, and you can feel it in the author's writing.
Mm,
And I always think that's why some writers will wait until they're successful before they come out as well, because they
interesting.
know that maybe they will get passed on
Gosh, yeah, that's
if
the
they
thing.
don't
Yeah.
conform. I
Mm,
know Bret Easton Ellis used to refuse to actually discuss his sexuality because he was basically saying, "You're going to judge my writing based on my sexuality, and I don't want that.
mm.
I want you to judge it on
On the
the
writing
content."
itself, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
which is really interesting. I think was
Yeah.
quite, which sadly wasn't comfortable enough to do it, but I completely understand why he did choose to do that. He's already quite a polarizing author. You either love his work or you don't,
Mm,
and I think he was just worried that people would find extra reasons to either hate it or praise it when it. He was like, "Oh, it's
mm.
good, but it's not, that good."
Yeah, yeah. That is such a thing, and that shows up so much, I think, generally. Because if you think about it, what I see a lot, especially I guess with female authors, they don't use their full name on the cover. They use like initials. Like, and that's
Yeah,
that's
both.
also to be not like taken more seriously, maybe, or like being more neutral in, because that has an effect apparently, because otherwise people might not do that, right?
Yeah, well, it used to be, yeah, because it used to be a thing that I think male authors did, especially when they would have like really long family names if they came from very, affluent families.
Mm,
They would just put their initials followed by their family name.
yeah.
So I think a lot of female authors then did that because they knew that,
Mm,
oh, that's probably the only way I'm going to get someone to write my book.
mm,
As problematic as they are, that's the reason why J.K. Rowling did it, because it's their publisher said, we advise you to do this because we think
mm,
it will sell better if people don't realise that you're a woman to begin with.
mm, mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because obviously, if the first book hadn't been successful, no one really would have cared either way.
Yeah.
And the same reason, like E.L. James, who wrote 50 Shades of Grey,
Yeah.
she chose her initials as
Yeah.
well. And I mean, I was a victim of it. Well, not of it, but like I fell for it when I was reading books, and I was like, when I saw E.L. James, I kind of went, oh, a man's written that, and it's like, oh, well, no, but that's just because of how I've been raised to,
Assumptions, right? Yeah.
consume.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how I've been, taught things, and I was like, oh yeah, I need to not do that because that's not actually a thing. Some people just quite like it.
Yeah, yeah. And it is such a thing, isn't it? Because sometimes if you read something, even a blog post, for example, if you read it and you make an assumption that the person is like a man, and then you learn that they're not, and then you read it again, it feels different, doesn't it? Or the other way around, whatever.
Yeah,
But it is
yeah,
like
yeah,
it
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 can
does
do.
have a different energy to it all of a sudden, which is really interesting, I find.
Yeah, I think especially if there's like issues within a book as well,
Mm,
whether it's being written by either gender, when you find out, you can go like, oh, that's because of this reason, or I think it's because of this reason. It just makes you view
mm,
the what you're reading very differently.
mm. Yeah, it's true. Yeah, we all judge a book not just by its cover, but by its authored gender, I suppose, and many other things. Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
especially when you look at like older books, like H.P. Lovecraft never gave their full name.
Mm.
So I think when people see that now, they assume, oh, all the men did it, so it's men who are still doing it.
Mm. Yeah. And also in the past, there have been people who've written, I guess, anonymously, because like women couldn't publish books. Who was I reading the other day? There was a woman called Florence Scovel Shinn in around 1925. And she wanted her book published, but no one would take her on because she was a woman. So she was like, well, sod that, I'll self publish. And it was very kind of, I don't know if the word is esoteric book, a book called The Game of Life and How to Play It. So very like spiritual, I suppose. But yeah, so she was like, oh, I'll
Yeah,
do it myself then. And she had the means, like she found the way to do that, which is, I guess, a privilege in itself at the time, I suppose, because not everyone would have had the chance to. But I mean, I guess it's still a privilege in a way to have a book out because it's an expensive process. Because as I've been, as you well know, obviously, but like as I've been looking into this anthology that I'm making, because I know a common co-authored book process is that people pay to be in the book, and then that pays for making the book, and hopefully a profit for
yeah,
the publisher as well, and then they donate some proceeds to charity and this and that and the other. You see that a lot, and that's fair enough. That's a model. But also, like, I was thinking in my own optimistic self as I was starting this journey earlier this year, it's like, well, what if I want to pay the authors an actual fee? And I was
yeah,
just looking into it and I'm like, I would need to raise so much money. And it's just like, it was a bit disheartening in a way. But I got to a
yeah. It can
place,
be difficult.
yeah, right. But I got to a place where I was like, at least I won't charge people for it. So I want people to just be in the book, and what can I offer them if not a monetary compensation? So I was thinking of like offering them like some space on the website for their bio in case they are, writers and want more work, so they have a presence there and stuff like that. So this is all still stuff I'm figuring out, and like crowdfunding and all sorts of things. But it is a tricky thing, isn't it? Because you either need money, or you need like lots of time, or you need good connections, or to get a book published. It's a yeah, there's a lot to it.
It's difficult.
Mm.
Yeah, the ones I've been involved with when I've done, when I was involved, well, I still am, but being
Mm.
involved with Coagulation, which are a queer publisher based in the
Oh yeah.
US, non-profit,
Mm.
they do profit share for the authors. So you don't always get
Oh
loads of money, but it's that thing of like, we'll split what we make
yeah.
evenly between you. But then it's also that thing of like, but just be warned that like, even if you put three stories in this book and someone else puts one, the split's the same because we acknowledge that not everyone has the same amount of time
Yeah.
to write three stories, or maybe they can just submit artwork. But
Yeah.
it's really nice. We know everyone's making the same. That we get to see all the breakdown of the sales and the profit.
Yeah.
So that's one way to do it. But like even then, like again, the cost to actually get it published and to
Right.
get it out there
Yeah.
is quite high.
Yeah.
So it's very much. But luckily, it's a non-profit, so
That sounds great. I'll
they
have to look
aren't as,
into that. Yeah. I like that a
yeah,
lot.
they're not as fussed about overhead.
Yeah.
But like even that's done by Cora, who I mentioned
Ah,
earlier.
yeah.
But like
Cool.
in that regard, that's like, yeah, even she's like, it would be nice to make more money.
Right.
We
Yeah.
would all.
Because
I wish I could pay you all, hundreds and hundreds of dollars or pounds in my case. But
yeah.
you
Right.
know,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Oh gosh.
But we have fun doing it, and that's the main thing. It's like we get to experiment, we get to get our stuff out there. But
It's
like,
true. Yeah.
yeah, but it's not the same opportunities as other anthologies, which have a big company, big one of the traditional publishers behind
Yeah.
them.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? Like, I've heard several small publishers say, well, I don't have to do it for the money because I still have a full-time job alongside this. That's quite a few of them I've heard.
Yeah, it's like it's good. Like, we all wish we could make more money, but we're just happy with like the little we get.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is nice.
Yeah.
It's nice when you get that through because you're like, oh, someone bought my work. I'm really happy about that.
Yeah, and it's like people do it because they
Which
love
is the
it,
main
right?
thing.
Because you don't have to do it for the money unless you got like an elaborate business plan, or yeah. And it's so lovely to see that actually. It's like social. I was looking into social enterprises the other day, and I think what I want to set up as well is a social enterprise. And just there was a
Yes.
workshop locally, and there was just a group of people sharing their passion and their just what lights them up. And it's just so inspiring. And I would take that any day over a job.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Like it's stressful. Like with my little indie press, which has been going for just over a year, it's
Yeah.
like profits are basically non-existent.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever actually made a profit,
Wow. Yeah.
but I'm able to give royalties to the people who I publish with, which is nice.
Amazing. Yeah.
It's just if it wasn't for all the admin costs and legal fees of running a
Yeah.
business, I would be turning a profit.
Hmm.
But it's just nice being able to get people's work out there, get my own work out there, and but like yeah, it's like I really wish I could make more money, but
Yeah. Of course.
I don't have that investment behind me of
Hmm.
people going, yeah, here's £200,000, go do what you want.
Mm. Yes, please.
Oh,
Thank you. But
that,
yeah.
yeah, that's a dream. But like, it's nice being able to just be like, here's another small business, like to challenge what's already
Yeah.
existing.
Yeah. Yeah. What advice do you have for, like, maybe budding authors, queer authors, I suppose, to start, or things to look out for, or anything else?
I would say like just write. When I first started writing with Coagulation, because it was a queer publisher, I didn't really pay attention to that aspect. I just knew it was like a very comfortable space, and I
Mm.
wanted to write my
Yeah.
stories. And it wasn't until like I'd written my fifth story, and I was like, I don't think I've necessarily made one of them very queer. I don't think I've made it explicitly
Yeah.
queer. And then there was that part of me which went, but I don't need to, because in real life, if you look at someone, you don't know what their sexuality is.
Exactly.
So I sometimes say like almost unless you are writing a queer story, don't assume that as a queer writer you have to make your writing queer. You
Mm.
can write about whatever you want.
Yeah.
Whether you want it to be the next Game of Thrones style thing, or
Mm.
the
Yeah.
next big horror, or the next romance, like or the next Godfather crime drama kind of thing.
Mm.
Just write whatever you like writing about.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then there's so many communities out there, there's so many. Fortunately, we do have like a lot of short story publications. Some of them charge, some of them don't,
Mm.
but like just see what's out there and just write a story, then try and publish it.
Mm.
It's if you can afford to pay, well, normally it's what they call a reading fee
Mhm.
just to look at it, but if you can like afford to do it. If you can't, just look at the ones which are free, even if you don't get paid for it. It's a great way to start getting a little catalogue under your belt and say, I've been published here,
Mm.
which goes a long way, I think, sometimes when you do want to get
Yeah.
published.
Yeah.
Like more traditionally or even independently,
Mm.
people know you've got a following.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. And I like what you said about not having to make your writing queer, because I think, like, queer people are just existing everywhere, and it's not necessarily something that needs to be highlighted as part of the story. It's just normal, and there might be the odd hint of, like, different pronouns, or, there might just be the slightest hint of something like you see in, it might have been Heartstopper, because there's a trans woman in it, right? And
Yeah, I think so.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's the one I'm thinking of, I think. Oh, and Moxie, similar thing actually. Yeah, so it's just lovely because she's just there, and her being trans is like, it's kind of like part of the story, but it's not the main part of the story. It's not about, oh, here's this trans person, let's make a big deal out of it. It's more like, here's a trans person, she's just existing in society with her friends and in relationships, navigating all the stuff that we all do. You know?
yeah. I watched weirdly. I watched Evil Dead Rise
Okay.
the other day, and
Oh,
one of the characters in that is played by a trans actor,
okay.
but the story it's not explicit in the story. At no point is it like
Right.
ever
Yeah.
mentioned, but it's really nice that the casting director was like, I want this
Yeah.
person to play this character,
Mm.
whether or not within the background unspoken it's known that they're trans or not. It's never
Yeah.
mentioned, but it was nice even just to see like, oh, it's nice that this big horror franchise gave a trans actor the opportunity. The same with the new Hellraiser remake. Pinhead was played by a trans actor. I can't remember
Really?
her name, unfortunately, at the moment, but which was really nice because it's more weirdly, it's actually more accurate to the book.
Oh,
But it was really
interesting.
nice to. It's really nice to see big franchises
Yeah.
taking this and like not even mentioning that they've done
Yeah.
it, but just having them there.
Yeah. Because I
And
think,
I
like,
think people.
yeah. Yeah. Go on.
No, I was gonna say I think if people see that, it's then like, oh, that's really cool. I can then
Mm.
that's me. That's me. I've got the opportunity. Like, especially like maybe if someone who's trans who wants to be an actor, they know that there are people who will hire them and make roles
Yeah,
for them. Whether
exactly. Yeah, and it's such a thing as well, isn't it? It's like they just do it. They don't have to announce it like, "Oh, look at us being all like diverse and inclusive and stuff. Check us out." It's like, well, if you really
yeah,
cared about it, you wouldn't have to announce it all over the place, would you? you know?
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, on the flip side, a show which was a bit more, I think, well, I say a bit more, very explicit in their gender non-conforming
Mm.
characters was Showtime's Billions, which is all about Wall Street and
Ah.
hedge funds. But in season 2, they introduce a character called Taylor, and that's played by Asia Kate Dillon, and they're a non-binary actor.
Mhm.
And it is very explicit in the show, but it's
Yeah.
done in a way that it's actually relevant to the
That's fair
plot.
enough, isn't it?
And it's
Yeah.
and the character, the way the character is treated, is quite realistic.
Yeah.
Sometimes they get misgendered, and they have to correct people, or someone else has to correct
Yeah.
them. And it was really good
Mm.
seeing that. And that was the first time when I was exploring my own gender.
Mhm.
I was like, oh, there's someone who isn't a cis character being arguably one of the most important characters on this show now, at the
Mm.
forefront,
Yeah.
all the way to the end of the show, which
Yeah.
was really, really nice to see. And obviously, they've had Asia Kate Dillon's had such a good career since,
Yeah.
and it was really nice to see that,
Amazing.
them being uplifted.
Yeah.
And obviously the actors who play the characters on the show who don't like their character in real life being like, oh no, we completely love this person, they're amazing, and using their correct pronouns and challenging fans of the show who might be a bit more toxic, misgendering them.
Mm.
And it's really nice to see that, going like, yeah,
Yeah.
these characters aren't real. They're played by people who may not have the same views as their characters.
Mm. Mhm. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I love that. Wow. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we wrap up?
I just think in terms of like, obviously I know we covered like parenting and
Mhm.
writing and exploration, but I think with all of it, it's just take your time and just be patient with yourself
Mm.
more than anything. Like gender, especially gender and sexuality exploration, it's very much a journey
Yeah.
as opposed to a destination. So if someone is maybe like myself, I went from cis male to non-binary to to a woman, but then there might be someone who goes, oh, actually, that's not right for me. I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna go back to non-binary because I felt more comfortable there.
Mm.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong for doing that. Like, I think obviously people detransition for multiple different
Mm.
reasons, but sometimes it is just that thing of, oh no, it's just not right for them anymore,
Yeah.
and they should be completely supported. I know,
Yeah.
obviously, it is sad when it's more about their environment causing them to not feel safe.
Mm.
But like, I think there are environments out there. I think even if you don't realise that there is a community out there, there is one. I didn't realise that Norwich had a queer scene till about 2 years ago when I ended up going to a drag show, then meeting about 100 different queer people. I was like, oh, okay, this is
Yes, there they are.
massive where I live there. And I probably walk past these people every day and not even realise.
Yeah, right.
Um, and now like I've met all these amazing people. I've met so many
Yeah.
friends, and it's just it's been absolutely amazing. So just because you
Brilliant.
think you're alone,
Mm.
you're not. Especially with the internet, there's so many
Mm. Yeah.
group chats and
Yeah.
people to meet out there.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for sharing, Helena.
Thank you for having me.
Yay. You can find out more details on the website at 50shadesofgender.com/Helena, where you can also read the transcript, and you can find Helena on her website, thehelenakey.wordpress.com, and on Instagram at thehelenakey. Thank you for listening to the 50 Shades of Gender podcast. You can find us online at 50shadesofgender.com, on social media and on YouTube. Again, if you appreciate this podcast and want to support us, visit our website to make a donation, find out more about our allyship course and workshops, and details of how to join our community. We hope you will listen again. Until then, stay curious and open-minded.